All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to kind of flip the script on what you might think you know about, where Americans are moving to. We're going to look at a trend for 2025 that might surprise you.
Okay.
More and more Americans are thinking about picking up and moving to Singapore.
Singapore.
Yeah. Now, you probably think about that really cool skyline, right? And a really strong economy.
Right.
Singapore is famous for like a really high quality of life.
Yeah.
But why are so many Americans specifically getting interested in this place?
It is kind of an interesting question.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, Americans moving abroad, you think
Yeah.
about Europe, maybe Canada.
Right, exactly.
So why Singapore?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. I mean, is it just about, trying to save money, or are there some other things about the lifestyle, about, the way society works there that maybe we haven't thought about that, might appeal to somebody listening right now? That's kind of our mission today, to figure that out. So we're going to really look at what jobs are like in Singapore, try to understand how much things cost versus that great quality of life they have, and then look at why it's considered so safe and politically stable. And then we'll also look at taxes and, just kind of paint a picture of what it's like to live there day to day, whether you're a digital nomad or you're, really making the move for good.
Yeah, hopefully by the end of this, people will have a much better idea of what this trend is all about.
Yeah.
And whether or not Singapore might be a place, they'd want to live someday.
Right. You might even be packing your bags by the end of this. So, a lot of times when people move, it's about jobs.
Sure.
Right. And Singapore has really become like a global hub.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just some little place in a region. It's a huge player in finance, technology, all sorts of businesses.
It's become kind of the center for, global business in that part of the world.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I thought was really interesting that our sources pointed out is that companies in Singapore, they're really going after talent. International talent.
Yeah, they want the best and brightest from everywhere.
Right. It's not just filling a job. It's like, we need these special skills.
Exactly.
And it seems like for Americans, there are a few industries that are really hot.
Okay.
Like finance and banking. You've got like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, the big names.
Right. And these aren't just little satellite offices.
But they're major operations.
Yeah. These are like the big hubs, right?
They're really important for accessing those Asia-Pacific financial markets.
Right. It's like the gateway.
Yeah.
And they need people who have experience, Americans have that. And a lot of them have experience working in other countries too.
Right. That international experience is a big plus.
Yeah. So then you've got tech and AI development. Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence and blockchain these days.
Yeah, it's the future.
And it seems like Singapore's trying to get ahead of the curve there, which means they need people from the US who are already experts in this stuff.
It's a big part of their national strategy, actually.
Wow, really?
They're investing a lot of money and effort into becoming leaders in AI and blockchain.
Interesting. So it's not just like happening naturally. They're really pushing for it.
They're going for it big time.
Okay, that makes sense. And it's not just those two either, right?
No.
Healthcare and biotech are huge over there too. Seems like they're trying to grow all sorts of industries, not just the usual ones.
They want to be a biomedical hub for the whole region.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're putting a lot of money into research facilities. They're trying to get pharmaceutical companies to come there.
Wow.
And there's a lot of biotech startups popping up too.
That's really cool. So it's not just doctors and nurses, it's a whole ecosystem.
Exactly.
Now, the last thing I thought was interesting, because you think of Singapore and you think of big companies, big finance, but there's also a lot of stuff happening with startups and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, a lot of new businesses.
Which I didn't really expect.
It's pretty surprising, actually.
It is. It seems like they've made it really easy to start a business there, They've got funding, they've got programs to help you out, and the rules aren't super complicated.
Yeah, they've really streamlined the whole process.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, if somebody's listening to this right now, they're thinking about their career, they're thinking about what they're good at.
Right.
They've got to ask themselves, could Singapore be a place where I could really do well? Could I find a job there?
I mean, what are you really good at? What's growing in your field right now?
Right.
There's a good chance that Singapore is looking for people like you.
And they might even pay you more to do it.
Maybe even give you a chance to work on some really cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about something that's always on people's minds when they're thinking about moving. Cost of living.
Yeah, the money part.
Yeah, and let's be real. Singapore has a reputation for being expensive.
Yeah, especially for housing. You're thinking about those fancy places like Orchard Road, Marina Bay.
Right. Yeah, those iconic places, those are going to cost you.
You're going to pay a premium to live there.
But if you look beyond just how much rent is, it starts to get a little more complicated.
Right, it's not as straightforward.
Like the public transportation there is really good. I mean, it's cheap, it's efficient. You might not even need a car, which is a huge expense for a lot of people in the US.
Yeah.
Think about all the money you save on gas, on insurance, on car payments.
Their MRT system, their bus system, it's fantastic.
You can get anywhere you need to go.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then there's the food. I was reading about these hawker centers they have.
Oh, the hawker centers?
Yeah. Have you ever been?
Yeah, they're amazing.
Okay, tell me about them.
They're basically like open-air food courts.
Okay.
But the food is incredible.
Okay.
And it's so cheap.
Really?
I mean, you get a full meal for like $5.
Wow. So it's like a really cool way to experience the culture and not spend a ton of money.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then, of course, we got to talk about taxes.
Right.
Taxes are a lot lower in Singapore than they are in the US.
Significantly lower.
And I know for a lot of people, that's a big factor.
It can make a big difference in your finances.
So it's like this trade-off. Maybe you pay more for housing in some places.
Yeah.
But you save on transportation, the food's cheaper, your taxes are lower.
Right.
It really depends on how you spend your money and what's important to you.
It's about priorities.
Like what are you willing to spend a little more on and where can you save?
Some people are willing to pay more for a certain lifestyle, even if it means cutting back in other areas.
Right. And that brings us to this idea of quality of life, right?
Yeah,
It's not just about money, it's about how you live.
exactly.
And Singapore always gets really high ratings for clean air,
The air quality is amazing.
really good healthcare.
World-class healthcare.
Yeah. And just a really high standard of living overall.
It's a really nice place to live.
So it's like maybe some things cost more,
Sure.
but you're getting a lot in return.
You're getting value for your money.
Right. You're getting a good life. So it's like, what's more important to you?
Right. What are you willing to compromise on?
Yeah. Saving money on every little thing, or maybe paying a little more to live in a really clean, safe place with great healthcare.
Think about what makes you happy, what reduces your stress.
That's a good point. Okay, speaking of safety, Singapore always gets really good scores on that too.
Yeah.
It's considered one of the safest countries in the world,
Very low crime rates.
which is a huge deal if you're thinking about moving somewhere new.
Gives you peace of mind.
Yeah. And our sources said that a big reason for this is that they have very strict laws.
Right. And they enforce them.
Yeah, there's no messing around. And this is interesting because, they pointed out that there are no mass shootings in Singapore.
No, they have very strict gun control.
Right, which is a big difference from the US.
It's a big difference.
So, that's got to be a big relief for some people, knowing that you're safe from that kind of violence.
It is. Especially for families with kids.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's not just about crime either.
No.
They have very little corruption.
Very low levels.
Their government is very stable.
Very stable.
And that helps the economy grow too, right?
Absolutely. It creates a predictable environment for businesses to thrive.
Right. People feel confident investing and starting businesses there.
Exactly.
And then just the overall feeling is that it's a really well-organized place. Like things work well.
Very efficient. Everything runs smoothly.
Yeah. So if you're somebody who values that kind of stability and predictability, Singapore seems like it would be a good fit.
It's a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. And the peace of mind that comes with that, that's priceless.
You can't put a price on that.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk a little more about the financial side of things.
Okay.
We talked about taxes, but specifically, the benefits for businesses.
Right.
Singapore seems like it's really trying to attract entrepreneurs and investors.
They're rolling out the red carpet.
Yeah. And one of the big things is that there's no capital gains tax.
Right.
So if you're investing, your money can grow without the government taking a cut of your profit.
It's a huge incentive.
Yeah, that's huge. And then the corporate tax rate is only 17%.
Which is much lower than the U.S.
Right. It's like almost half.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
And that means businesses have more money to reinvest, to grow, to hire more people.
Exactly. It makes them more competitive.
And it's not just about the low taxes either.
Right.
The government actually gives money to startups and businesses.
They have a lot of grant programs and incentives.
Yeah. They really want to see these businesses succeed.
They see it as an investment in their own future.
Yeah, so if you're an American entrepreneur, you're listening to this, you're thinking, man, I want to start a business.
Right.
Singapore seems like a pretty good place to do it.
Yeah, it's a very attractive environment.
The taxes are low, the government's helping you out.
You've got access to global markets.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about the people who are maybe working remotely
Okay.
or just want to live a more global lifestyle, the expats.
The digital nomads?
Yeah, the digital nomads. Singapore seems to be really popular with them.
Yeah, it's a hotspot.
And I think one of the biggest reasons is the internet.
The internet's amazing there.
It's super fast.
Some of the fastest in the world.
And if you're working online, I mean, that's essential.
Absolutely essential.
You can't be dealing with slow internet.
No.
And it's not just practical stuff either, right?
Uh-huh.
They've got really nice co-working spaces, cool cafes.
Yeah, it's a very modern, high-tech environment.
It seems like they've really designed the city to be a good place to live and work, even if you're not working in a traditional office.
They've thought of everything.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting is that there's a huge expat community there.
Yeah, it's a very international city.
So if you're moving to a new country, that's got to be really helpful, right?
It makes the transition a lot easier.
You can connect with people who understand what you're going through, who can give you advice, show you the ropes.
Exactly. You've got a built-in support system.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about, working remotely, living a global lifestyle, traveling the world, Singapore seems like it would be a pretty good home base.
Yeah, it's a great place to be based.
You've got the fast internet, you've got the cool places to work, you've got the community.
He's got it all.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap things up, I mean, we've talked about a lot of different reasons why Americans might be interested in moving to Singapore.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
You've got the jobs, a lot of opportunities to advance your career, maybe make more money. You've got the safety, the healthcare.
Right.
And then if you're an entrepreneur, you've got the low taxes, the government support.
It's a very attractive package.
Yeah. But, at the end of the day, moving to another country is a big decision.
Yeah.
It's a personal decision. What's right for one person might not be right for another.
It depends on your individual circumstances, your priorities.
Right. Some people might be really drawn to the safety and the stability.
Yeah.
Others might be more excited about the job opportunities.
The chance to make a lot of money.
Right. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, maybe Singapore is for me, what's the next step?
Well, the best thing you could do is go visit.
Go check it out.
Experience it for yourself.
See what it's really like.
Exactly. Nothing beats firsthand experience.
Right. You can read all the articles, you can listen to all the podcasts, but you've got to go there and see it with your own eyes.
Walk the streets, try the food, talk to the people.
Yeah. And on that note, here's something to think about.
What?
We've talked about all these great things about Singapore.
Right.
The jobs, the safety, the lifestyle. But what are you leaving behind?
That's a good question.
If you move to Singapore, what parts of American life are you giving up?
What are the trade-offs?
Right. And then on the flip side, what new things, what new opportunities might open up for you in Singapore?
What doors might open that you never even knew existed?
Things that you couldn't have done in the U.S.
What could your life look like in 5 years, in 10 years if you make this move?
Yeah. It's a big question,
It is.
but it's worth thinking about.
It's worth exploring.
So that's something to ponder as you consider your future.
Food for thought.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.
All right.
Bye.